Was Ford's 10-speed transmission actually a disaster? Or is the real story far more complicated than most people realize? For nearly a decade, the 10-speed automatic has been one of the most talked about technologies in modern pickup trucks. When it first appeared, it sounded like the perfect upgrade. More gears promised smoother acceleration, better fuel economy, and stronger towing performance. On paper, it looked like a major leap forward for truck engineering, and at first it really did seem like a breakthrough. Ford introduced the 10-speed automatic in 2017, and it quickly spread across some of the most popular vehicles in America. Trucks like the F-150, the Ranger, and heavy-duty Super Duty models all began using versions of this transmission. The goal was simple: give trucks the ability to stay in the perfect gear more often, improving both performance and efficiency at the same time. Compared to older 6-speed transmissions, the jump to 10 gears was massive. Each gear allowed the engine to operate closer to its ideal power range. That meant quicker acceleration, smoother towing under load, and lower engine speeds during highway driving. For truck owners who tow trailers, haul equipment, or simply want stronger performance, that sounded like a huge win. Early automotive reviews were extremely positive. Journalists praised the transmission for its flexibility and responsiveness. The system could even skip gears when necessary, jumping directly to the ratio that delivered the most power. But as more trucks hit the road, the story slowly started to change. Owners across the United States began noticing something strange. Some trucks shifted harshly at low speeds. Others hesitated when accelerating from a stop. A few drivers even reported sudden downshifts that made the vehicle feel unpredictable. At first, these issues seemed isolated. But over time, more and more drivers started reporting similar experiences. Online truck forums filled with discussions about rough shifting, delayed responses, and transmissions that seemed to constantly search for the right gear. Dealerships began issuing software updates, trying to recalibrate how the system behaved. And suddenly, a question that nobody expected started circulating among truck owners. Did Ford push the 10-speed concept too far? Because while the idea of 10 gears sounded impressive, managing all those ratios required incredibly complex software. And as many engineers know, when technology becomes more complex, even small calibration mistakes can create big real-world problems. Now, as Ford prepares the next generation of trucks expected around 2027, insiders say the company has been quietly rethinking its entire transmission strategy. So the real question isn't just whether the 10-speed had problems. The real question is what Ford plans to do next. To understand why the 10-speed transmission created so much debate, you have to go back to the moment it was first designed. In the early 2010s, automakers were under enormous pressure to improve fuel efficiency without sacrificing power. Truck buyers still demanded strong towing capability and fast acceleration. But government regulations were pushing manufacturers to reduce fuel consumption at the same time. Engineers needed a solution that could deliver both. The answer seemed obvious. Add more gears. More gears allow an engine to stay closer to its ideal operating range. Instead of jumping between large gaps like older transmissions, a higher gear count gives the vehicle more precise control over engine speed. That means the truck can accelerate harder when needed, but also cruise more efficiently on the highway. Ford partnered with another major American automaker to develop a brand new 10-speed automatic transmission. The project took years of engineering, testing, and computer modeling before it was finally ready for production. When it debuted in the 2017 truck lineup, the transmission was considered one of the most advanced systems ever installed in a pickup. The design allowed the transmission to move through gears extremely quickly. In many situations, it could even skip multiple gears at once. Instead of climbing through every ratio step by step, the system could jump directly to the gear that produced the most efficient power. That flexibility made the trucks feel quicker and more responsive, especially when paired with turbocharged engines. For heavy-duty trucks, engineers created an even stronger version, designed to handle massive torque loads from diesel engines. These trucks often pull heavy trailers across long distances, and having more gears helped keep the engine in its strongest power range. During steep climbs or highway towing, at least in theory, everything about the design made sense. But once millions of trucks began operating in the real world, a different challenge started to appear. Managing 10 gears required extremely complex computer control. Every shift depended on software constantly analyzing throttle input, road conditions, vehicle speed, and driver behavior. The system had to predict the correct gear almost instantly. If the software guessed wrong, the result could feel awkward or rough to the driver. And that's exactly where many of the complaints began. Some trucks seemed to hesitate while the computer searched for the right gear. Others shifted harder than expected at low speeds. In certain situations, the transmission appeared to move back and forth between gears while climbing hills or towing. Drivers began describing the experience with a phrase that quickly spread through truck communities: gear hunting. Instead of delivering perfectly smooth shifts, the transmission sometimes struggled to decide which gear was best for the moment. And for truck owners who rely on their vehicles every day, that behavior quickly became frustrating. What started as a groundbreaking engineering idea was now turning into a growing controversy. As complaints about the 10-speed transmission continued to spread, the issue slowly moved beyond online forums and into the real world of dealerships and repair shops. Truck owners across the United States began visiting service departments with similar concerns. Some drivers reported rough shifts when slowing down in traffic. Others noticed hesitation when pressing the accelerator from a stop. In a few cases, the transmission would suddenly downshift in a way that made the truck feel jerky or unpredictable. For many drivers, the experience didn't match what they expected from a modern pickup truck. Dealerships often responded by installing updated transmission software. These updates were designed to adjust how the computer controlled shift timing and gear selection. In some trucks, the updates improved the behavior noticeably, but in other cases, the complaints continued. That's when independent mechanics started paying closer attention. Many technicians began saying the issue wasn't always a broken transmission. Instead, the challenge was how the computer tried to manage 10 different gear ratios in constantly changing driving conditions. A truck driving through city traffic behaves very differently from one towing a heavy trailer up a steep grade. The transmission control system had to constantly analyze throttle position, vehicle load, speed, road incline, and driver input. All of that decision-making had to happen in fractions of a second. If the software calibration wasn't perfectly tuned, the transmission could hesitate while deciding which gear to select. That hesitation sometimes felt like a rough shift or a delayed response to the driver. And as more drivers experienced these behaviors, public pressure started to grow. Several lawsuits were eventually filed claiming the transmission had design flaws that caused harsh shifting or premature wear. While the manufacturer consistently defended the reliability of the system, the controversy began to damage consumer confidence. Truck buyers started asking a simple question: was the 10-speed transmission simply too complicated? From a pure engineering perspective, more gears should improve performance and efficiency, but each additional gear also increases the complexity of the system controlling it. Modern transmissions are no longer purely mechanical devices. They rely heavily on software, sensors, and adaptive learning algorithms that adjust shift behavior based on driving patterns. That means even a well-built transmission can feel rough if the programming behind it isn't perfectly calibrated. And this is where the story becomes even more interesting. Because while the public debate was growing louder, engineers inside Ford were already working on the next evolution of the technology. Instead of abandoning the 10-speed concept entirely, they began focusing on something far more important: making the software smarter. While the public debate around the 10-speed transmission was growing louder, engineers inside Ford were already looking ahead. Instead of abandoning the technology, the company began focusing on how to improve it. Because despite the criticism, the 10-speed still delivered several major advantages. It allowed trucks to tow heavier loads, accelerate faster, and cruise at lower engine speeds on the highway. From a pure performance standpoint, the transmission was doing exactly what it was designed to do. The real challenge was making the system smarter. Modern transmissions rely heavily on advanced software to control how and when gears change. Every time you press the throttle, climb a hill, or slow down in traffic, the transmission's computer has to instantly calculate the best gear for the situation. Earlier versions of the 10-speed relied on traditional programming that reacted to driver input. In other words, the transmission waited for the driver to do something before responding. But the next generation of transmission control systems is designed to do something different: predict the driver's next move. Engineers are now developing advanced predictive shifting systems that analyze dozens of inputs at once. These systems monitor throttle pressure, vehicle load, road incline, speed changes, and even driving patterns to anticipate what the driver is about to do. Instead of reacting after the driver accelerates, the system prepares the correct gear before the shift even happens. If the technology works as intended, it could dramatically improve smoothness while reducing gear hunting and hesitation. And this is where the 2027 truck lineup becomes extremely important. Industry sources suggest Ford is preparing a new transmission strategy designed specifically for the next generation of trucks. The plan reportedly focuses on 3 major improvements: First, smarter control software powered by far more advanced onboard computers. Second, stronger internal components capable of handling increasing torque from modern engines. And third, improved compatibility with hybrid and electrified powertrains. That last point may be the most important of all. Electric motors produce instant torque, which can change how a transmission operates. When electric assistance is available at low speeds, the transmission doesn't have to constantly search for the perfect gear. The electric motor can provide smooth power while the transmission selects the optimal ratio in the background. Some engineers believe this combination of electric torque and advanced software could solve many of the complaints drivers experienced with earlier versions of the 10-speed. And if those improvements arrive in the next generation of trucks, the driving experience could feel very different from what many owners experienced in the past. But that still leaves one big question. What will actually happen to the 10-speed transmission itself? So what actually happens to the 10-speed transmission as Ford moves toward its 2027 truck lineup? Despite all the controversy, the answer may surprise many people. The 10-speed isn't disappearing anytime soon. In fact, industry analysts believe it will remain a core part of Ford's trucks for several more years, but it likely won't stay exactly the same. Engineers are reportedly working on a heavily refined version of the transmission, with stronger internal components, improved cooling systems, and redesigned clutch packs. These upgrades are meant to handle the increasing torque produced by modern engines, while improving long-term durability. Heavy-duty trucks, especially those designed for serious towing, are expected to continue using high gear count transmissions. Diesel engines produce enormous torque, and having multiple gear ratios helps keep that power under control when pulling heavy loads. However, the strategy for lighter trucks may start to evolve. Some future models could move toward alternative designs, including advanced 8-speed transmissions or hybrid-specific gearboxes, designed to work alongside electric motors. Because electric motors deliver instant torque, they can reduce the need for constant gear changes at lower speeds. That means the transmission doesn't have to work as hard during everyday driving. This flexible approach may allow Ford to match the right transmission to the right powertrain instead of relying on one solution for every truck in the lineup. And Ford isn't the only company facing this challenge. Across the automotive industry, manufacturers are experimenting with new transmission technologies as vehicles become more powerful and increasingly electrified. Some companies are reducing gear counts while relying on electric motors for low-speed torque. Others are focusing on new software systems that make traditional automatics smoother and more predictive. The competition to build the perfect truck transmission is still very much underway. For truck buyers, the changes coming around 2027 could bring noticeable improvements. Drivers may experience smoother acceleration, more stable towing behavior, and fewer abrupt shifts during everyday driving. Fuel economy could improve as well, thanks to smarter shift strategies and hybrid power assistance. So was the 10-speed transmission actually a disaster? Not exactly, in many ways. It was a bold technological step that revealed just how complex modern vehicles have become. The concept itself was sound, but real-world conditions exposed challenges that engineers had to solve. Now those lessons are shaping the next generation of truck technology. And if Ford's 2027 strategy delivers on its promises, the 10-speed transmission may ultimately be remembered not as a failure, but as the stepping stone that pushed truck engineering into its next era.